Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Very weird episode. Very weird episode. I mean, every day the episodes, I guess you can sit down and argue that they're weird and different or whatever. But like this one was a little weird because like there was stuff that was like mildly interesting, and then there was just scenes where it was like this was not necessary. And spoiler alert: the Lulu and Laura scene was completely not necessary. It really wasn't, and I'll tell you why. But let's start off with um, Christina and Christina and Willow. So Christina walks in and she wants to sit there and give some flowers to Lulu, but she doesn't want to sit there and disturb the family. So she asks Liz to sit there and do it for her. And then um, Willow comes up to sit there and ask Christina to sit there and be a character witness. See, before that, she had a run in with Nina, and she was cold and distant to Nina. Basically, sitting there saying, listen, I get it, you're here for Maxie, and that's really great, but I've told you more than once to leave me alone and just respect my space. But Rick came over afterwards and kind of congratulated her for keeping her cool and was just like, listen, I get it. You got a couple of friends or whatever, but we need some family members to vouch for you as far as being a good mother. So she asks Christina. And, Christina at first is like, listen, she pretty much kind of lays it out like, I don't really want to do it or whatever. And she tries to, like, let her down gently. And to Willow, says like, listen, I miss my kids. I'm very desperate and stuff like that. You know what it's like almost being a mother. And this is where she snaps, right? This is where she snaps. See, the thing is, I understand where Willow's coming from. When she said that comment, this wasn't like an insult to her. I want people to understand that. And the reason why I sit there and say that, well, it wasn't meant to be an insult. And the reason why I sit there and say that is because I remember a couple of videos back, I said something very similar about Sasha. When Sasha was in there talking about, well, now I know what it's like to be a mother, making hard decisions, this, that, and the third. And I basically was like, but you weren't really a mother in a sense. Like, not Smith is saying, like, she wasn't a mother because she didn't give birth. I meant it more in she wasn't a mother that long to sit there and really understand the challenges, the sacrifices, and stuff like that Holly made. You ever heard the saying that a father that, any man could sit there and have a child, but it takes a father to sit there and raise one, right? And it's not to sit there and say that in reverse for women and mothers and stuff like that. Yeah, I understand that she lost her baby just like Sasha lost her first baby. So when I said that, it wasn't meant like, oh well, you're not a mother or whatever. Like your child died or whatever. It wasn't to sit there and say it like that. But as far as the experience went, so when Willow said it, she didn't say it like, oh well, you're not a mother anymore because of that, but more like when she said it, it was more like you're not a mother on a day to day basis to understand that pull and that need to really want to sit there and be with your kids. And it's like Christina blew it way out of proportion, and then just went off on her. And granted, a lot of the stuff she said was true. Like, yo, listen, you're kind of a terrible mother. Like like she was the one that was meant there keeping that connection going when Willow was in the hospital. I mean, when Mike was in the hospital. Um, because she was meant there following Drew and just just doing everything that Drew told her to do. And then, of course, she talks about that night when she practically scared Wiley when she came back from a wedding and she was all makeup running and looking all like fucking scary and shit and didn't really care about what the kids wanted, just cared about what she wanted. She brought that up too. And she was also just like, listen, I don't want to go against my brother and you're asking me to do that. But after she said that comment, she went off on her and then she left. And then Liz came up to her and Liz was like, listen, you have to understand that she's desperate. She wants her kids back. And, she pretty much was like, no, she's a bad mother, this, that, and the third. And she was very impulsive, the stuff that she did. Liz chalked it down to a bunch of mistakes and basically was like, you should understand what it's like being impulsive. Seeing how you cut the brakes and almost killed me and Rick. Remember when you did that, right? And, you know, Christina took it as, so what are you going to blackmail me if I don't sit there and say anything positive? And she was like, no, not, she was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just sitting there reminding you that, I gave you grace because you made mistakes. And I think you should do the same thing with Willow. And I'm like, so you're saying you're not blackmailing her, but you're blackmailing her, right? Like you're not sitting there saying, yes, I am blackmailing you. But you pretty much made it known that if you don't sit there and testify or you don't sit there and speak for her behalf, that at any point in time, she could sit there and be like, oh, you try to give her, you didn't give her grace, so why should I continue to give you grace? Another thing that Liz is doing that's I don't want to sit there and say that's super annoying me, but it's just like, I don't get you. She practically was like, I want you to understand we're just friends and everything like that. But, she thanks him for a good lunch and Rick is like, okay, cool. So, maybe we should sit there and do dinner sometime. And she just smiles. And I'm like, the reason why she didn't sit there and say no or I don't really know, whatever, because let's be honest, I think that she likes the attention. I mean, really, I don't, she's not seeing anyone. We haven't really seen on camera of people hitting on her. So I think she kind of likes that sense of being wooed. And I feel like by her doing that, even though she told Lucas, I'm not leading him on, am I? You're still leading him on. Let's just be real about that. You're still leading him on. Um, Now, Ava and Cody. See, Cody was going to sit there and tell Ava the truth. He was sitting there saying, I'm not really a good guy. Kind of came there with some bad intentions. Da 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 da. And her wanting to make Rick jealous. She's like, hey, listen, I know what you're doing. This, that, and the third. He seemed like he was about to sit there and tell her the truth until he found out why she was flirting with him so hard. Not just to make Rick jealous, but also she wants to sit there and hang on to Rick because she wants to drive the Davis girls crazy. And she talks about each one that she doesn't like and why. And Cody's like, okay, cool, I get it. I get with Alexis, and I get that Christina could be very impulsive and kind of just like too much. But like Molly's cool, right? Like Molly's a good one. And for some odd reason, Ava's like, Molly's the worst. And she started naming different reasons of why, aspects, being judgmental like her mother and stuff from her father or whatever. And basically Smith saying that she's going to make them pay. So with that being said, Cody was just like, listen, I'm. It's like the conversation, the pep talk that he had with Tracy about not doing schemes and plotting and practically Smith saying being a 304. He's like, well, I'm going to be a 304, but to protect Molly because it seems like Ava's going to go after her worse. And as I was sitting there writing my notes, I was just like, she should really be gunning for Christina the most, not Molly. Not sitting there saying that she shouldn't have any beef with Molly, but to sit there and say she's worse than Christina after this girl literally cut your goddamn brakes and everything else that she was sitting there doing, but Molly's the worst. So this is where it's like her saying that Molly's the worst seems more plot driven than logic and story wise. Because she would have more issues with Christina than Molly. But because Cody was about to sit there and spill the beans. He's not going to do that. He's going to continue to seduce Ava to make sure Ava doesn't come after Molly, because apparently she's the worst. And it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. You want to know the sad part? Is that after Liz did her not so subtle blackmailing um, Christina to, be a character witness for Willow because, hey, listen, she made some mistakes or whatever. She is walking around and she spots Willow calling Drew, sitting there saying, I need your help to get back the kids. So it's like all that effort that she was sitting there trying to do to help her out and sitting there saying that, listen, she just made a couple of mistakes. She misses her kids. It's like, and she keeps making them. And she keeps making them. And this is why I said yesterday, I was like, all that work that everyone's that they're trying to do to help her and stuff like that, and kind of get her, her life back on track. And, Liz isn't there, renting out the room, well, letting her stay there and really helping her out, and even sitting there kind of covering for her and talking Lucas down and not filing, with HR about the whole assault. All of that went out the window because she's still sitting there making the same stupid ass mistakes that and essentially caused her to lose her kids. Which again, I'm gonna be completely honest. I mean, caused her to lose her kids by these soap opera standards and everything, and the judge and stuff. And in reality, I'm not even gonna get to that. But it's like she didn't learn a damn thing. That's the bottom line. And of course, Nina, walks past Liz and Rick when Willow practically told her to kick rocks, and at some point, Rick gets a call from Nina to meet her at the stairs, and Nina's pretty much just like, you need to sit there and tell Willow that the only way to get her kids back is to never talk to Drew again. And, Rick was like, her being with Rick is not going to really have any bearing on the case. I'm kind of like, I don't really see that because the whole state lines thing, crossing state lines, and that was something that the judge sat there and cited Willow for, and she didn't think it was a big deal. She did it because she wanted to sit there and see Drew. So it was like, what are you talking about? Like, it didn't impact her court hearing. And also, sure, Nina Bruno's like, I don't care. You do it because I tell you to do it. It's weird. It's one of those things where it's like, as much as I don't like Nina sometimes, I can see where she's coming from as far as getting Drew away from her because it's like she is unrecognizable. She is completely and utterly unrecognizable. I don't know. Part of me does feel like Willow is going a little bit too hard on Nina, practically blaming her for her losing her kids because, hell, if you would have told me earlier, then I would have dumped Drew and my life would have never spiraled out of control. But I'm like, girl, your life is on you. You spiraled out of control because of the choices that you made. You can't blame Nina for that. Yeah, it would have helped for a heads up or whatever, but you still chose to do what you did. This is the reason why it's like Nina and Willow both lack accountability for the holes that they constantly dig themselves in. Now, the last stuff is Carly talking to Jack because Jack needed to come in with his plumbing skills. And long story short, Carly was not there talking about Maxie and, sitting there thinking about Felicia and what it must be like to sit there and lose a child. And, she talked about Morgan and everything, which is really interesting because I was actually on, I forgot the actor's name, but I was actually on his Twitter. And I could have swore he said something along the lines of, listen, if GH wants to be back, that's on Frank, that's on the network. But anyway, she was like, long story short, she was like, listen, I already lost one child. I can't bear to lose another one. I can't survive it. And that's when Jack was like, don't worry, you're not going to. And it really coincided with, towards the end of the episode, Jocelyn getting a gun pointed at her by Pascal. See, Jocelyn wanted to sit there and stay and try to find Britt. And Cody was like, not Cody. Vaughn was like, no, we're out of time. We can't find her. They did one last search and they couldn't find her. But, at this point, Jocelyn's like, listen, you can sit there and call Brennan. You can text Brennan. He can yell at you. I'm going to do one last search because when the WSB comes, by the time they get here, everything's going to be done. Everything's going to be shut down, and we're not going to have anything. So if I can at least get the Brit, I got something. And she just decides to do it anyway. And as she's walking through the hotel, she almost gets spotted by Jason. Of course, she can't find Brit either. And then she goes back to the hotel, and Pascal is having a gun. So Brit sees Jason, and then Greta comes over. And I was like, how does Greta know Jason? Like, when did that take place? Anyway, they're talking and everything like that, and getting to know each other. And Britt is just kind of just there, listening, being jealous, making faces and everything like that. On some real high school shit. Because she practically told him to kick rocks, but yet she wants to sit there and stay there and hear all the conversation and look hella jealous and everything. And to Pascal pretty much was like, what are you doing? So Brett was like, you need to sit there and get her away from Jason and pretty much kind of have her do a damn job. And Pascal was like, well, technically she is doing her job. I want to know what Jason Morgan is up to. See, we already have some WSB spies just kind of just hanging around. And I don't know if he's a part of it. I don't know if he's not. But I want her to sit there and get all cozy with him and just make sure that, see what he's up to. They talk a little bit more, and apparently, I guess she might have went back to her room or something like that. Anyway, Jason finished hanging out with Greta. He goes back to his room, and then Britt is just there. Then we get to the other stuff, and this is the Michael and Molly scene. And I'm going to be honest. Here's the thing: I know that Molly is a person that tends to overthink things. But for like 20 to 25 minutes, Michael is practically telling her to just go for it. He's like, hey, listen, you don't have to reinvent yourself. You don't have to sit there and say yes to everything. But while being a strategist and kind of overthinking stuff or kind of plotting things out and thinking about hypotheticals and stuff like that, that works great at your job in a professional level. But when it comes towards matters of heart, personal, stuff like that, like, it doesn't. And, for her to sit there and take 20 something minutes thinking about the pros and the cons and this, that, and the third, I'm kind of just like, why would Cody want to be with you? Cody is a very, listen, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to sit there and think about stuff. I'm just going to do it. Right? So part of me is like, why would he want to sit there and be with somebody that will overthink everything? Like, I feel like she's the type of person that when you take her out to a restaurant, or you want to sit there and take her to the zoo. She's like, okay, well, what's the temperature going to be like? How many people is going to be there? What kind of places should we sit there and hit up first? It's like just overthinking every single thing. And I do, here's the thing. I get it. Opposites attract. But sometimes if you're just that far apart and you're just that opposites, it's probably not going to work. Because I feel like they would just drive each other crazy. Because it's a soap opera and TJ's not on, and she needs to be with somebody, and Sasha's not on the show anymore, and they decide to make them goddamn cousins. This is what they're doing. After 20 something minutes overthinking it, Michael's just like, just ask Mom for coffee. Just ask Mom for coffee and see what happens. And of course, she goes to the Quartermains, she goes to the barn, she doesn't even text or call or anything like that. And then she practically barges in his room or like barges inside like, girl, you ever heard of knocking or giving a... Let me tell you something. Men do not like pop-ins. We really, really, really don't. Right? Just showing up without calling or texting. We don't like that shit. I mean, nobody likes that, but we really do not like that shit. So of course she does the exact opposite and just shows up and opens the door and see Cody and Ava practically in the nude, like, they just finished getting it on. So a 20-30 minute talk to sit there and try to get her to not overanalyze every goddamn thing, and in under 3 seconds it all just goes out the goddamn window. Just like, wow. And then of course she's like, oh, Christina was right about you. I was right about you. I'm glad that I sat there and I overthink things for like 20 minutes because I just wasted my time. I'm never going to do that again. Awesome. So we're going to have to sit through this for another couple of months. That's just great. Um, and then of course, like I said, there's a Lulu and Laura scene, which, I mean, there's not really much to talk about with that scene. I feel like sort of yesterday, it was somewhat the same vibe. Like, while she was concerned about Maxie and having Maxie go through what she went through, I felt like the conversation was more about her. And I get it on some level because Laura was there to sit there and check on Lulu, to sit there and see how she was doing. But I guess part of me was just like, the scene would have been like the scene. I felt like it was more about her and her feelings, and I felt like it should have been more stuff about Felicia and what she's going through, watching her daughter in a coma, fighting for her life. Instead of, even though Maxie's in a coma, we're gonna sit there and make this about Lulu and her feelings. Like that's the part where it just kind of, I mean, granted, as much as I don't really care for Felicia, I just felt like it just would have been better. But for some odd reason, this is this is what they decided to do. Now, I felt like that's pretty much about it. I can't think of anything else that wound up happening, or anything that's like worth, in my opinion, to sit there and talk about. But if I miss anything, write in the comment section below. Today is my birthday, so I will be doing a birthday stream. We'll talk about the soaps and everything like that. But so yeah, come through. Anything that I missed, we'll sit there and talk about it there. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and I'll see you in the next video and live stream.